Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again this week for Gospel Geek. I did take a break last week, but I'm ready to get back at it again and join with you all. Today, I want to take a look at destinations. I would say it's a pretty safe venture to claim that all of us here have destinations that we are going to. It might be working up the courage to ask that girl. It might be getting to the altar. It might be laying down the mortgage on the house. It might be getting a job with greater financial security. It might be traveling overseas. It might be finding some healing from the cancer or from the grief that you're dealing with. It might be to become a professional athlete. We all have these destinations that we are working toward. But I think it would also be a safe bet to say that many of us don't always realize or arrive at those destinations. At least not in the way that we have hoped. You know, there are a lot of people that have destinations, even in the Bible. Perhaps a classic example would be the story of Jonah. He had a destination in mind, Tarshish, about as far across of the no more that you could get from Nineveh, which is where he ultimately ended up. For those of you who know the story, by way of a giant fish. But Jonah's mix of destinations didn't even start there. It began with his destination of destruction and condemnation for the Ninevites. The destination he arrived at, though, was God's mercy and forgiveness for those people. He didn't end up where he wanted to go. But perhaps he ended where God wanted him to be. Another example might be the life of Peter. Now, Peter could very well be said to be the poster child for missing the point. He does this multiple times throughout his journey with Jesus, but from the very beginning, he sets out on a destination. He leaves everything, including the miraculous catch of fish he has, to follow a man. Destination, overthrowing Rome, becoming a follower of the new king of Israel, bringing in the next golden age. We can see this in his idea that where he was going when Jesus asked him, "Who do you say?" And he said, "You are the Messiah." And then just a couple verses later, "I'm going to go and die so that we can accomplish this." And Peter's fervent insistence that that is not the way that this journey is supposed to go. Another man that may have a destination is Saul. He had a destination of Damascus. And when he arrived there, he planned to continue persecuting and even killing Christians. And though he arrived in Damascus, his destination did not involve persecuting Christians, but becoming one of them in a new name. And then there was a man also who ended up at the same place in Straight Street. In fact, it was his house. His name was Ananias. And while his destination did not involve coming face to face with the man who was trying to kill him, the place he ended up was right where he needed to be, laying hands on Saul so that he may become Paul, one of the greatest contributors to all the writings in the New Testament. We don't always end up where we want to go. Maybe you wanted to be an athlete, but a tragic injury put you out of commission. Now instead, you're working a clinic for troubled youth. Maybe your idea was to travel across seas to do third world missions, but you end up serving in a small town in Missouri. Turns out that is exactly where you need to be. And the examples could go on. Although one other example that I would think is worth of noting is a man who travels all over the place. He hardly can stay in one place for any period of time, and trouble seems to always find him and whoever his traveling companions are when he's there. He often ends up not quite where he planned to go. And it would seem that his way of conveyance, his transportation, has a mind of his own. We really don't know what his name is. He goes simply by the Doctor. For those of you others who are Doctor Who fans, you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. The doctor always seems to set out with a destination in mind. Sometimes he gets there. Sometimes he's a couple years early or late. But he always ends up right in the midst of crisis where he needs to be to fix it, or the circumstances that he needs to find himself in to fix parts of himself. This theme comes out in full view in one of my personally favorite episodes, The Doctor's Wife. I'm going to show you a clip in a minute, but the premise is that they get the Doctor and his TARDIS get trapped in a strange place, and then the conflict ensues, but the TARDIS is broken down, but it turns out the TARDIS became a woman. A person with 2 arms, 2 legs, flesh and blood. And the Doctor is in a dialogue with this woman, and they really do get into what seems like a husband and wife spat. When the Doctor turns to her and claims, you know what, you are not always the most reliable. So take a clip of this clip real quick.
Since we're talking with mouths, not really an opportunity that comes along very often, I just want to say, you have never been very reliable.
And you have?
You didn't always take me where I wanted to go.
No, but I always took you where you needed to go.
You did.
I really love this scene. It really hit me when I heard that line. Very powerful, and it resonated with this truth, I think, that is also of God. I mean, how many times have we accused, or at least wanted to accuse God of being inconsistent, unreliable? You healed that person's grandmother, but you did not heal my sister. I asked for greater financial stability so I could take care of my family, and now I'm at a job that pays less than ever. I thought you were calling me into the practice of winning souls for Christ, not into babysitting angsty teenagers. I thought I was to spread your gospel, not bless the man who's trying to put it to its death. I thought you were here to save us, not to die. I thought I was going to make it big. Whatever our destinations, wherever we seem to think that we want our lives to go, and sometimes it works out. I'm not saying that it doesn't. Sometimes that place is where God ends up letting us be, and sometimes not. And not every time where we end up not exactly where we planned is it this huge veering off course the way it was with Jonah, or is it this huge life change like it was with Saul. Sometimes the need to be isn't as prominent as in some of these examples. But I think it's powerfully true. And we think that God, the one who is bringing us through life, and we say we want to end up here with you. And God ends up leaving us someplace entirely different. The church that brought about such deep spiritual formation that you never knew you could have it. The fulfilling life of watching young youth grow in God and in their love for sports. A powerful testimony of deep emotional healing, even in the midst of physical suffering. The ability to talk about a God who, yes, died, but rose again. To bring about and participate in the healing of a man who would go to write letters to several churches and whose words would stand the test of time to encourage those who would seek after Christ for generations to come. To be sure, God doesn't always take us where we wanted to go, but I think if we would look, we would find that He often brings us exactly where we needed to be. Thank you for joining me again this week. My encouragement to you would be to begin by just looking at your current circumstances. And maybe it's what you want and maybe it's not, but begin to seek to find the purpose and the need for that circumstance in your life. In my experience, it is often found when I create that with God together. And He gives new purpose to wherever I am. Because He knew I needed to be there. My prayer for you is that the grace and blessing of God would follow you throughout the rest of this week. See you all later.